Yeah, okay. I extend a warm welcome. I'm Veena Bembergi, chairperson of Hubli Royals Tangent 30. I extend a warm welcome to all of you. I welcome Greshma Momaya, our resource person for today. Hi, Greshma. A warm welcome to Circler Shweta Hakapaki, chairperson Hubli Central Ladies Circle 71. Welcome Dr. Ketki Kulkarni, President of Inner Wheel Club of Blingde Hubli Midtown. Hi Madhu ma'am. A warm welcome to Madhu madam, Mrs. Madhu Lodaya, who is a counselor and she conducts psychological and aptitude training for students at MBA colleges. A warm welcome to all the national board members of Tangent Club and Ladies Circle and the district members of District 317 Inner Wheel. Warm welcome to all the Tangent Circlers and Inner Wheel members. I take privilege in introducing our resource person for today, Mrs. Greshma Mumbai. Hers is an extensive and a very impressive CV, so I will need referencing now. Mrs. Greshma is presently the head of Trio Tots and is a parenting and education expert. Everybody who Shweta, can you please mute everybody? Please mute yourselves, everybody. So I'll start with the introduction. Mrs. Greshma is presently the head of Trio Tots and is a parenting and education expert with an extensive experience of 12 years plus in the education industry. She has to her credit a number of prestigious awards. To name a few, the India Star Icon Award, Microsoft Innovative Educator Award. She is the Global Goodwill Ambassador of India, Ambassador of India for Child Abuse Prevention Program. She was nominated for the Padvidhar Awards conferred by the Secretary of Maharashtra. She is the Honorable Advisor at Sports Association of India. She has been conferred the title of Wonder Woman at the Wonder Women World. She is a certified educator from UNESCO and UNICEF, also Microsoft. With degrees from the Yale and Harvard University, she to make a difference in the education industry by nurturing an overall holistic development in children. I wholeheartedly welcome you, Greshma. I must say this is an extensive and very impressive CV. We will now start the session. Over to you, Greshma.
Thank you so much, Dr. Veena, for amazing introduction. I first request everyone to please put your mics on mute. Lot of disturbance, background disturbance. Okay. Okay, I have just put everyone on mute now. So thank you everyone for joining for this workshop. My heartfelt gratitude to Hubli Royal Tangent 30, Hubli Central Ladies Circle 71, and Inner Wheel Club of Blingde Hubli Midtown for organizing this wonderful workshop. If you have missed out on my introduction, that's fine. You can just Google my name and you will get all the details. I want to head directly to the workshop. I selected this topic for the workshop, which is parenting hacks, because all our children are millennial children, and somewhere as a parent, we also have to start learning their language also. Okay, so I will start my screen. I'll share a screen with all of you so that you can read the points what I am explaining. It will become a little easier. Okay, are you all able to see my screen? Parenting hacks? Okay, great. So this workshop is going to be a lot of interactive, where I would request all of you to type your answers when I'm asking any question. You can type your answers in the chat box. And, I will be giving you the tips that I'm giving you. It will be always connected to an example of real life, so that you can understand how you can implement in your life. And the examples will be of various age group and pertaining to different situations. Now, one more thing, in the workshop I will never say parent or teacher. I will always address it as adult. Okay, because I feel even if there are teachers here, this workshop will be helpful to them, and as a parent it will be helpful to you also. So I will always address as adults. Okay, so let's begin and let's understand why parenting hacks. Because hacks is something that is very quick and shortcut, and that can be easily implemented. So the objective of this workshop is that after we finish this workshop today, you have at least something that you can implement with your child and while you are parenting your child. Okay, now the first question to all of you is, do you think children have stress? You can give me, the answer is yes or no. You can just show thumbs up and I will understand. Yes. Okay, so most of you think that yes, children do have stress. Now, next question to all of you is, do you think all the stress are bad for children? No. You can write even if you don't want to say in the mic, you can type it in the chat box. That's fine. I will read all your responses. So, yes, as we said, not all stresses are bad for children. So let us understand what are good stress. We can always call it as simple stress, and what are bad stress, and which is always also called it as toxic stress. Now, so good stress happens when we confront to a situation and we believe that we can manage or we can control. So when in a situation or in a problem we feel that we have the control and it is challenging but we can do it, it is actually a good stress. Now, let me give you an example of a child. Now, a girl is trying to ride a bike with just one hand. Okay. Now, suddenly the girl sees a pothole coming ahead and she feels stress, and she immediately puts her other hand on the bar. Now, in this entire duration, which would be not more than a second, her brain has gone into a survival mode. So the brain is telling the heart to pump blood to her legs. Her vision gets a little better because her pupils open to take in more light. And now she is ready to take an action. So she guides herself around the pothole and continues safely down the slope. So what happens in this case is the child has quickly handled the danger without any problem. So it was a good stress here in this example because it helped the child meet the challenge because she believed that she could do it. And trust me, parents, the brain loves success and will store the memory of this event lifetime for her. So next time when this child faces such a dangerous situation, this positive memory, please note, I am not counting it as a negative memory, but I am counting it as a positive memory which will help her deal with it. So good stress makes us stronger, ready to take on new challenges. So when does good stress happens to children? When the new challenges occur to them, when they are learning new skills and simple everyday choices. So for a child to select which color of crayon to use is a stress for them, but it is a good stress. Yes. Now, let us understand what is bad stress, because bad stress can definitely be toxic for children. Now, taking the same example of the girl and the bicycle, in the first example, the girl has handled the situation very well and it was a good stress, right? But now the situation changes again and now it has become worse. Now the rain is falling harder, there is lightning, there is thundering, and she has trouble seeing the roads, and the child has suddenly taken a wrong turn. Now understand that she has never ride a bike in such terrible conditions. So she has never had the experience of getting through them. She doesn't feel capable. She doesn't feel safe. And now she's overwhelmed by the fear. This is what we call as bad stress. And this bad stress can definitely be toxic for your child. It happens when the child is in a threatening situation, which goes on, and the child feels that I'm not able to deal with it. Bad stress actually erodes the confidence of the child and makes them question their ability. And that's what affects their self-esteem and self-confidence. Now, how does what is bad stress basically? So threats, screaming, shouting, shaming the child. Okay, I see many a times relatives come to your house and they'll tell you, your child has lost weight. Are you not feeding your child? Or they'll tell you that child has gained weight. Are you overfeeding your child? Unfortunately, most of the times the relatives do this in front of the child, and that is exactly body shaming. Now, we can't do anything on at that moment. We can't control the relative. Okay, but why I'm emphasizing on this point that we as adults, we should refrain from commenting on any other child or any other mother that matter. Okay, so body shaming, comparing the child, and lack of attention, all these are toxic stress. Now, getting little more into details before we go ahead with the tips, we all know that this stress is bad, toxic stress is bad, and it affects the children. But let us understand how it affects the children. Now, in our brain, there is a part called amygdala. Okay, so if you are able to see the picture right now, there is an amygdala, and then there is a primitive brain, and then there is a prefrontal cortex, which is also called a thinking brain. Now, let us understand what is the function of amygdala. Amygdala is specialized for, or the function is to input and process of emotion. That's the major function of amygdala. During the toxic stress, amygdala shuts down the thinking brain, which is your prefrontal cortex. Okay. Now, thinking brain itself tells us that it plays an important role in the child's life. Now, what is this thinking brain and what does it do? So, thinking brain basically, helps child in self-control, in reflexive behaviors, in decision making, problem solving, planning. So these are the roles of thinking brain. But now when the child is into a situation where the child is scared, or child is having a fear, or child is threat, the amygdala shuts the thinking brain completely. And primitive brain takes over. Can you all see the primitive brain that is marked in the picture? So that is a primitive brain. Now, when the thinking brain is shut, the primitive brain takes over. Now, when primitive brain takes over, the brain will respond only in three ways: flight, fight, and so let us understand, when I say flight, what does it mean? When I say fight, what does it mean? Now, The flight, when I say the child is in the flight mode, it can look like that the child is having a darting eyes. The child is very, very restless. The child is fidgeting excessively. The child is just doing anything to get away, and the child is running around without concern for his own safety. Now, let me give you an example. In most of the cases, during when the child has to write something, whether it is classroom or whether it is home, most of the times the child does not like writing. Okay, and what does the child do? The child will start fidgeting, play with the pencil, play with the books, play with whatever is around, or make some reason of going to washroom, drinking water, they are hungry. They'll constantly give you these reasons, right? So when does that happen? Now, when the child is in the flight mode, which means the child is scared of something. So if you are asking child to write and the child is actually not doing all these things, which means child is scared of something. So it is important that instead of forcing your child to write, it is important that we understand what is that it is disturbing the child. Is the child scared of writing, or child is not feeling confident of writing? We need to understand that. So do not focus on that the child is fidgeting, or you make so many reasons whenever you have to start writing. You have to go to washroom whenever you want to write. So we generally react to those things in this way, but we need to first understand that why the child is scared of writing. Now, let's move on to the fight. Now, when the child is responding in fight mode, the child will start kicking, screaming, spitting, pushing. The child will start throwing things. The child will clasp his hands in fist, so which means ready to punch, and the child will gasp for breath. Now, I have seen children doing this, especially what we call as temper tantrums. Okay, and what happens is when the child is throwing the tantrum, the child is kicking, screaming, whatever the child is doing. Most of the times, I see parents trying to make them understand that what you are doing is not right, and what you are doing is actually wrong. The adult is trying to reason out with the child at that moment. But you look for any parenting book, you go to any parenting expert, you go to read any parenting articles. When you Google for temper tantrums, the first thing that they will ask you to do is just go and hug your child. Okay, why do they say that? When the child is actually throwing a tantrum, please understand that amygdala has shut their thinking brain. So when you are trying to reason out with the child that this is wrong, don't do this way, we are in a public place, the child cannot think. The child is unable to process that information. Okay, so at that moment, what you need to do is just go hug your child and say, I understand that you are upset. I know there is something that is upsetting you. Still for 10-15 minutes, child will kick you, scream, or push you. But please make sure that you are actually holding them a little tightly, and they'll actually melt down and they will calm down. And then at that moment, please don't reason out anything. After the entire session is over, the child will calm down, and then you can explain the child as to what is right and what is wrong behavior. So that is the fight mode. Now, let's go on to the freeze mode. So that is the third response of the primitive brain, where the child is holding the breath, or the child is feeling numb, child has started whining, or the child is daydreaming, or feeling unable to move. Now, let me give you an example of daydreaming here. We all have watched Tare Zameen Par, and we all know Ishaan Awasthi, Inu, where the child is actually enjoying looking out in the window, or the child is actually daydreaming. Why is the child doing that? Because child when the teacher is asking him to open that particular page number and giving him fast instruction, the child has got scared and the child has frozen. Child does not know what to do. The child is unable to move, and then later on the child is actually daydreaming. So if you see all the behaviors that you are seeing on the screen right now, it mostly happens when the child is having a toxic stress or a bad stress. Okay, so instead of focusing on these things that the child is actually kicking or pushing or fidgeting, please focus on why the child is doing that. What is it that is affecting the child? Now, I have given you an idea of what bad stress can do to your child. Now, what I want you to understand is the next few slides will actually help you understand or help you avoid your child to reach to these stages. Okay, what can we do as adults in the environment to make sure that the child do not reach these stage? So let's move on to the next slide. The first one is, do not dismiss child's feeling. Now, let me give you an example here. So what happens is, there is a child who has recently got some marks and has come home, and the child is very upset. So child is telling the parent, just because of my few careless mistakes, I only got 80 marks. And the child is upset. Okay, as a parent, you tell me, how will you respond to your child to this question? You can write it in your chat box. When your child is coming and telling you that just because of few careless mistakes, I only got 80 marks. I'll be able to see all your comments only later because I'm sharing the screen. So the adult here in my example has responded to the child saying, don't worry, you will do better next time. Okay, that's how the adult has responded. And I feel most of us as parents will respond in this way. And which is right, because there's no negativity here. You're not scolding, you're not threatening, you're not shouting at the child. So you're just saying, it's okay, don't worry, you will get good marks next time. But what happens in this situation is, you have stopped the scope of child sharing the feeling. The child must be really, really sad inside, but because we said, don't worry, you will do better next time, there is no further communication. Now, instead, what can we do? First, identify the child's feeling. So keeping this example in mind, let me tell you how we can respond to this point. So parent for this point can say, you sound very, very disappointed. I understand that it can be very, very upsetting when you know the answer and you lose points for careless mistakes. Now, what have you done as an adult? You have identified the child's feeling. You know that child is very disappointed and you have identified the child's feeling. Now, after listening to this response, the child will actually start, sharing more things with you. That how much upset the child is, how much efforts the child had put in. There is a scope of communication between the adult and the child. Now, when the child is still going on with how the child feels, please do not cut the child in the between by saying, okay, when I was a child, I was also doing these mistakes. Don't worry. You are actually cutting down the child when the child is wanting to talk to you. Instead, acknowledge the child's feeling. How can you do that? Just with a sound or just one word, by saying, oh, I see. That's all we need to do. Acknowledge the child's feeling. and allow the child to talk. Now, most of the children will actually vent out their entire feelings in the first 2 points itself. They'll finish and they'll actually feel much, much better. But there will also be some children who would actually go a little more extreme, where they might start throwing things, or they might start kicking the desk. So what you can do as a parent, accept the child's feelings even as you stop the unacceptable behavior. How can you do that in this case? This is how you can respond. I know and I understand that you are still angry about that grade. You are still so angry about that grade that you are actually kicking your desk or throwing things, whatever the child is doing. I cannot allow that. But you can tell me more about what's upsetting you, or you can draw it. Now, when you say that, I know that you are still angry. You have accepted the child's feeling. I cannot allow that. When you say that, you are being firm, but you are being polite to them. You are not attacking the child. Okay? And when you say that you can tell me more about what's upsetting you, or you can draw it, you are offering child more time, that you are ready to listen to the child. Or if you want, the child can draw those feelings, what the child is feeling. Now, after this, the child will absolutely calm down, because you have actually given the message that you do not accept these behaviors. You do not accept behaviors where you start throwing things, and child will actually calm down. So first thing is, do not dismiss your child's feeling at all, anytime. Next, move on to the next slide. Do not criticize or question your child. So let us take next example now. So the child, this happens right now due to lockdown. It might happen in most of the houses, because we want children to be engaged. So the child is, say, about between 3 years to 7 years, and the child was interested in doing some art activity or some craft activity. The child has done the activity, and the floor is completely in mess. The room is completely in mess. There is paint fallen down on the floor. Now, as a parent, please write down, how will you respond to this example? When you enter the child's room and you see paint all over, what is the first reaction of you? I'll give you a minute. So mostly the first question that we throw at the child is, who is responsible for this mess on the floor? Who has done it? I told you not to do this activity. I told you not to do this activity without me. You could have waited for me. So these are some of the instructions that we start giving. Now, when you tell the child who is responsible for this, the child is getting into a fear mode. When you say that, I told you not to do this activity, the child will next time never have the courage to do the activity. Or when you're saying, I told you to wait for me for this activity, which means you are giving them a message that they can't do anything independently and they need you for everything. They are not capable of doing this independently. So instead of that, can we change? Can we do something else? Let us see. So the first point is, describe the problem. Now, keeping the example in the mind, how will you respond? I see wet paint all over the floor. I see lot of things all over the floor. So you have described the problem in simple words, but in clear words. Next, give them information. It's easier to remove paint before it dries. Now, What happens is here, when you're saying that it's easier to remove paint before it dries, the first message that goes to the child is you have to clear up your mess. So without raising your voice or without getting angry with the child, you have given them a message that they have to clear the mess. Along with that, you are also giving them an information that you better remove the paint before it dries, or it will be very difficult for you to remove the paint. So the child will actually start thinking on what you've told. The child will actually start looking for things in which they can start cleaning. Third, offer a choice. Okay, remember in the good stress I had mentioned simple everyday choices. That's how you can slowly put into your routine. Offer a choice. Now you can tell your child, you can either clean it up with a wet cloth or a damp sponge. Again, the first message here you are giving to your child is, please clean up your mess. And you have to do it, I am not going to do it. But instead of being rude to the child, you are putting it very subtly. And second, you are offering them a choice. You are actually guiding them how they can go forward in this problem. Okay. So last is describe what you feel. If you see the child is still not doing it, or still has not taken the initiative to clean up, you can say, I don't like seeing the floor splattered with paint. Again, the child will, after this, the child will start cleaning up. And trust me, you must be thinking that I have tried this with my child, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. You have to do it every day. You have to do it consistently. You cannot change your consistency. Okay. So here what happens is, you are actually, in this example, if you really follow these steps, you are actually becoming their facilitator. You are becoming their guide, where you are guiding them on how they can tackle a problem. And you are also telling them that they can tackle problem independently. Okay, so this is the second example. Next example, do not threaten or punish. Okay, we have all seen the effects of threatening and punishing. Okay, we've all also seen that how amygdala shuts everything, and how it affects the child's behavior and learning. Now, how we can avoid that? So the next example here is, mostly we see that children, once they turn say 9 years or 10 years, they pick up some foul language from their environment. It could be either from
वॉल्यूम का क्या है, इनकॉल वॉल्यूम मतलब आवाज स्लो हो गया होगा ना, फास्ट करना.
Please put your mics on mute. Please put your mics on mute. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, I was saying that mostly once the child is say 8 years, 9 years, or 10 years, or teen, we see that they pick up some foul language either from their peers or from school or from home, wherever they have picked up. So I'm giving you an example on that. So the child is doing some math work, and the child is getting very frustrated, and child is saying, please excuse, because I'm using a foul language here. I hope there are no children around, because I don't want to use these words in front of children. So the child is using, oh shit, I cannot do this math. Oh no, I cannot do this math. Some children also use the F word or the curse words. Okay, they might not know the meaning of those things, but they must have heard someone using it and they've started using it. So if your child is using a foul language in front of you, what would be your response? You can type down your responses in the chat box. How will you make sure that your child stops using the foul language? So in this example that I told you, the adult is responding that I warned you so many times over and over again not to use this foul language. Now you will be punished. Okay. So the parent will punish that I will take away your mobile, I'll take away your screen time, you don't get to speak to your friends, you do not get to play, okay, and you have to be sit in your room. So these are some of the punishments that we generally do in our houses. Now, instead of threatening or punishing the child, what can we do? So the first thing is point out a way to be helpful to your child. How can you do that? Keeping this example in mind. I hear your frustration. It would be helpful if you could express it without cursing or without using a foul language. I know you are frustrated, but it will be more helpful if you could express your frustration without using curse word, without using F word, or without using foul language. So you are actually pointing out them a way to be helpful. Second, express your strong disapproval. Now, just because that the child will get bad stress, I am not saying that you should agree to whatever the child is saying. But how you put your disapproval or how you put your disagreement is also important. So express your strong disapproval. How? Without attacking the character of the child. Now, when you respond to a child that I told you so many times not to use this language, you are directly attacking the character of the child. So never attack the child, because the child intentionally is not doing anything. It's the behavior that needs to be addressed and not the child. So never attack the child. So how a parent can respond here? That kind of language upsets me. Now, when you say that, you have clearly given your disapproval to the child that this upsets you and the child cannot use this language. Next point is state your expectations. So I expect you to find some other way to let me know how angry you are. Because we are dealing with 8 years, 9 years, 10 years old now, in this example, we can allow children to choose how they want to show their anger to us, okay? Which is not offending other people, which means you cannot allow the child to throw things, but the child has to come up with ideas on how they can show their anger. It can be through drawing, or it can be just talking to the parent. It could be anything, but let the child choose it and let the child come up with the ideas. So you state your expectations clearly. Next, show the child how to make changes. Now again, as a parent, it is our duty to show our disapproval that you don't like something. You show your expectation, but as parent, we also need to guide them to how to make changes. So it's important that we suggest children how to make changes in the behavior that we want to change. So in this example, for this step, how will the adult respond? The adult will say, what I would like to see is a list of some strong words you could use instead of the ones you just did. Okay? Choose the words that do not offend anyone. Choose the words which are appropriate, and you can tell them that they can use the dictionary also. So you are actually suggesting the child or giving them an idea on how they can change their behavior or change their habit of using the foul language. You are suggesting them only to come up with the words they can use. Okay? Next, let the child experience the consequences of his or her behavior. Now, when I say that the child needs to experience the consequence of the behavior, it doesn't mean to punish them or to threaten them or to take away their screen time or not giving them their favorite food. No, it doesn't mean that. How, as an adult, you can respond to the child? When I hear those words from you, I lose all the desire to help you with maths or anything else. So you are actually telling them that if you are using those words, I will not be able to help you with your questions or with your math, because in this example, the child is unable to do some math activity. So you have actually, given them the choice that, and you're actually telling them that you will not be able to help them, but in a polite way without getting angry with them. Next, let's go on to the next one. Do not label the child. So here in this example, the parent is telling the child that you are a motor mouth, okay? And when you are around, no one gets a chance to speak. So you are actually labeling the child that you blurt out anything and you say anything, and you don't think twice before saying anything. So instead of guiding them, you are actually labeling them, okay? Instead, what can we do? We can show a new picture of their self. So look for opportunities to show the child a new picture of themselves. Instead, can we say this way? Can we as adults respond to the child this way? What an amazing self-control. Even though you had a lot more to say, you realized that others needed a chance to talk. So in this, the setup is that there is a family gathering, and the daughter or the son is constantly talking and blurting out everything. That's when the adult has labeled the child that you are a motor mouth, and if you are around, no one gets the chance to speak. Please put your mics on mute. Okay. Now, so here the first thing is we need to look for opportunities to show the child a new picture of themselves. So instead of telling them that, can we please put the mics on mute? Thank you. So instead of telling them that you are a motor mouth, or we don't get chance to talk, can we put it in a positive way and tell them that what amazing self-control. Even though you had a lot more to say, you realize that others do need a chance to talk. Second, allow the child to see themselves differently. So put the child in a situation where she can see herself differently. Now there is a family gathering here. So here what you can actually do is you can allow the child to, to make the chairperson of the meeting, or of the family gathering, and the child can make sure that everyone gets a turn to talk, and also allot some time for the child where the child gets to talk to them, because children love talking to the family members or guests that come. So put the child in a different situation. Next, model the behavior you would like to see. Now here in this example, what happens is that the adult is telling the child that, when you are around, no one gets a chance to speak. Now, but at home, that's what most of the time the adult is doing. The adult is not giving others a chance to talk. So child is watching your behavior and child is picking up the same thing. So it's important that you model the right kind of behavior, then you also need to give chance to others. I missed the third point. Let the child over here, you say something positive about them. When we say, in the toxic stress, I spoke about body shaming, I spoke about comparing the child. Most of the times when one adult is talking to another adult about their child, and they generally say, my child is not eating, or my child is not listening to me, my child is not writing. If the child is around, the child is listening to what you are saying to your friend, okay, which really hurts them, because you are actually trying to compare them or tell ill about them to outsider. Instead of telling others negative about your child, please tell positive things about your child, and let your child also overhear you say something positive about them. Next, Remind the child of their last accomplishments. So before labeling the child that, you are not writing, or you cannot, you don't give others chance to talk, remind them how well they did in, previous gatherings where the child gave others the chance to talk. And state your feelings or expectations. So if you still feel the child is, after doing the first few steps, the child is still unable to understand, you can clearly tell them that when other people are waiting to speak, I would like you to keep your comments brief, or keep your comments short, or give others a chance to talk. State your feelings and expectations very, very clearly to the child. Now, we are coming mostly at the end of the our workshop. This is the last slide, and it says, do not give instructions only. Now, one day at night, just sit down for 10 minutes and think about the conversations, or the conversations that you are having with your child in the entire day. And you will be surprised that most of the times it is only instructions that you're giving to your child. Most of the times it is, please get up, do your work, do your writing, finish your homework, eat quickly, make sure you finish the food. There are only instructions that we as adults, whether at home or at school, we are constantly giving instructions to the children. Please note, those are instructions and not conversations. If someone is constantly giving you instruction since morning and till night, would you like it? Would you like if someone is telling, get up, make breakfast quickly for me, get my clothes ready, do this, do that? You wouldn't like it. So instead of giving only instructions to your child, have proto-conversations. Proto-conversations are nothing but where adult and child is talking to each other or conversing with each other, where first the child is saying something and then the adult is saying something and responding to the child. So those are proto-conversations. So you can give instructions. There is no harm in giving instructions, but limit the number of instructions you give your child. Okay, so how can you limit the instructions? For which you have to have routine, or you need to have a schedule or a timetable for children. If you have a set routine for a child, then trust me, your number of instructions will come down drastically. And you will notice that you are actually having more of conversations with your child. The adult can also share their childhood experiences, okay, and read a book with them. So where children have different issues, there are bedwetting issues, or child not obeying instructions, or child not ready to take turns, or child not liking writing. There are various issues that children go through, or difficulties that children go through. Now, trust me, for every issue, there is a storybook available for children, or there is a book available for children. So please read those books with them. Instead of correcting them through instructions, you can also help the child, deal with the issue by reading a book with them through a story. Okay, and you will see that the child is understanding the issue and trying to work on it. And the last point, what I've mentioned here, is extremely important. Apologize to your child when you make a mistake. Most of the times, we as adults have egos, or we feel that why should we apologize to our children? If I apologize to my child, next time my child will not listen to me. Most of us as adults, we think this way. But that's not the case. When you make a mistake and you apologize for it to your child, the first message that you are giving your child is that it's okay to make a mistake. We all make mistake. You make mistake. I make mistake. It's okay. There is nothing to get scared of making a mistake. Okay. Secondly, you are giving a message that whenever you make a mistake in your life, an apology is a must, is necessary. A sincere apology is necessary. So this is something that I want each and every adult here who has attended this workshop to take away and to really think that, can I apologize to my child if I've made a mistake? And can I start doing it at least from tomorrow? Yeah. So I hope you had some interesting takeaways from this workshop. And yeah, we've almost come to an end. And if you have any questions, I can answer some questions. We have some time.
Yeah, Grishma, can we have them all write up the questions in the chat box? Otherwise, everybody will start asking together.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So everybody, please ask your questions in the chat box. So she will answer them.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a general platform. Yeah, there's that first question.
Yeah, I have someone asking, which book would you suggest to read with the child? Mostly, there are a list depending upon the age of your child. So if you Google it, the books to read along with your child, along with the age, you will get the list of book. I really don't know the age of your child, so I cannot recommend the. My daughter is 6, so there are fantastic books like the Rebel Girls are there, Little Prince is there. These are some fantastic books that you can read with your child. I think I missed one question. My 20-year-old son does not keep his clothes away in spite of requesting him every day. So I can totally understand your issue. What I would suggest you to do is, if he is not keeping away the clothes, you don't have to do it. You absolutely don't have to do it. Let the child, it's okay. The clothes will stay there for 5 days, 10 days, 12 days. Let it be there. Eventually the child will understand. Okay, child will come and question you that, why haven't you kept my clothes? And you can obviously answer them that, sorry, it is your duty to keep your clothes back. So yeah, I hope I have answered your question. Sorry, I'm just going up. Next question. How to handle teenage kids' moods when they feel they are right and parents feel they are... I think that question is incomplete. How to handle teenage kids' moods when they feel they are right. Please complete that question. Next, even after telling stories and making understand regularly, still have to tell them repeatedly. If you tell me a specific thing that you need to repeat with your child, then I can suggest you, because mostly what I tell, it mostly happens with eating, that children are not eating independently, or the child
yeah,
is...
ma'am, it's getting up early in the morning. Means he's not ready to get up in the morning. Whether it is 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock also nowadays, it will always be with a cry only that you are not allowing me to sleep. And in case I don't wake him up, and then he wakes up on his own, then he shouts, why didn't you wake me up early? This is the thing which is happening. He's 10 years old. From the time he's 3 years, same thing is continuing.
Okay, so here is something, how it's important for me to know how you respond to it. So when the child is crying, how you respond, and when the child is shouting, when you respond. Because please understand, we are the adults in the house, okay? Doesn't mean that you can shout back at your child. You will have to just put some things in place and explain the consequence, that if you don't wake up on your own, you will miss on school, or you will miss meeting your friends, however it is, or you will miss your online class nowadays since everyone is at home. You need to set the consequences straight to your child, and please do not take the anger when the child is shouting. Please do not take that from your child. You will have to calm them down at that moment, hug your child, and then later you can sit down and, you know, talk to your child. Most of the times when the child
He
is
doesn't allow to hug or
sorry, I have just muted everyone because you can unmute yourself.
yeah, he just pushes away. He doesn't allow to hug or anything.
Huh.
When he's in bad mood or like.
Okay, so give your time, give the child to calm himself down. You don't have to run around behind your child. You need to allow them to calm them down. Yeah. Next, how to handle teenage kids' moods when they feel they are right and parents, I think that was incomplete. 11-year-old, how to stop playing games on mobile. So that can be an altogether and another session because most of the parents, especially during lockdown, are facing this. One thing I always tell parents is to you have to set the rules of the house from the beginning. It will not happen overnight. If it is 30 minutes, so if you are saying 40 minutes for the child, parents also have to use the phones only for 40 minutes. Okay, so especially with teenagers, with 11-year-old, you have to negotiate, you have to talk to them and calm them down. Here, I would like to add something on general, not for this particular case. I personally believe that there's something called sleep talking, okay, which our ancient people also used to do it. So, sleep talking, when the child is in a womb, okay, we say that whatever mother is thinking or saying, the child is listening to it or the child is feeling to it. This is the same concept. When the child is sleeping, the child is about to get into a deep sleep. There is a time where before the child gets into a deep sleep, the child is half awake and half asleep. Now, that time, please use positive affirmations for your child. So if you want for your child to wake up early, if the child's name is say Payal, please wake up, Payal, wake up early tomorrow. Payal will wake up early tomorrow. Go near to the child and say that. Sleep talking, trust me, I have tried with many children, and the bigger issues like bedwetting and children putting fingers in the mouth have been resolved by sleep talking. So whatever issue you have with your child, that sleep talking will definitely help you. Even if it is about mobile, you can tell them that tomorrow Payal will use mobile only for 40 minutes. And children are listening to you. The thoughts are going in their subconscious mind. Okay. So try parent. Sorry. So try sleep talking for any issue, for any age group that your child is. Trust me, it will work. And just don't do it for 1 week and say, okay, I tried, it is not happening. It will not happen. Depending upon the seriousness of the issue, it might take 1 week, 10 days, 1 month, 2 months, whatever. But keep doing it and eventually you will see that at least the frequency of that behavior would have come down. So try that. Going back to the questions.
Reshma, just a minute, please.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, how do we recognize that time when they're half asleep and half awake?
So when the child is actually sleeping, see, mostly this time, if the child has closed the eyes and child has actually fallen on bed and closed the eyes, about mostly in 15-20 minutes, we reach that state where it is the child is about to go in the deep sleep. See, you cannot make out from their facial expression or anything, but mostly in the child has stopped moving around, the child has calmed down and completely flat on the bed, like the child has started sleeping. In another 10 to 15 minutes, you will see that child is about to get into the deep sleep. Okay, so that is something, I mean, you can try it, and as you do it, you will also, I think as parent, you will also be able to identify when the child is about to get into a deep sleep. So mostly it comes after 10 to 15 minutes, but do not say very loudly. Just you have to actually whisper. Yeah. Next, I have 13 new messages, but I have. So let me go. What do I do? How can I make a 20-year-old understand the importance of being neat? See, at the age of 20, if you give a lot of instructions, they are only going to rebel back to you. Correct? So I would say initially, depending upon what bond you have with your child or how severe this issue is, maybe for some days you have to just let it be and not give any instructions. We generally see that once we stop giving a lot of instructions, the child feels that there is some change in your behavior. Okay, and you're not giving them that, okay, keep your clothes back, go to bath, do this, do that, and they automatically understand. Because at 20, I cannot really, because this is something, how to be neat has to start much early. Okay, because this is the basic life skill. Now, even if now the child is not able to understand, we need to say what is stopping him to do it. Okay, because 20-year-old is not so easy to handle. It's a very sensitive age where there are high chances that the child might get rebel to you. So depending upon the severity of the issue, you will have to tackle this challenge. Next, I have set a routine for everyday things, but still I have to tell it every day. How can I tackle this? Stop giving them instructions. Stop giving them instructions. Okay, if the child is not getting up, what is the worst consequence right now? Okay, let me give you an example of my childhood. Okay, earlier in those times, education was very important. Okay, most of the times parents paid so much attention to education that certain basic skills were actually ignored. Okay, so I had a friend who actually used to come to tuition in the morning without brushing the teeth, without taking bath, eating junk food. And I was recently talking to her, and she was telling me that I want to change my eating habits, because I'm in breakfast also, I want to eat junk food. I'm craving for junk food. Sometimes I step out without taking bath or without brushing my teeth, and I do it, but later on I regret doing it. I don't like doing it, but I don't know how to change it. So when we actually, because we've grown up together, we started actually discussing about our childhood, and we realized that when she was between the age of 6 to 10 or 11 years, we had tuitions in the morning at 9 o'clock, and then we had school in the afternoon. So most of the times, the mother, because the child would wake up late, the child was just sent to the tuition without brushing teeth or without taking bath. So as a parent, what has happened that you have already given a message to the child that it's okay not to take bath, but reaching the tuition on time is important. It is okay that you don't brush your teeth, but go to the tuition first. You've already given that thought or given that message to your child. So even now when she's 30 years old, see, she sometimes steps out of the house without brushing the teeth or without taking a bath. So the habits that are built in childhood cannot be changed even at a later stage. It gets very difficult. And I remember what she used to eat for breakfast. She used to eat the Gujarati khakra and the white butter that was made at home and some peanut chutney. That's all was her breakfast, so that she could reach the tuition on time. At that moment, What was important? Setting the basic life skill, or making sure that the child is reaching for the tuition on time or reaching for school on time, that matter. At that moment, what as a parent you could do is that the child has to face the consequence. Okay, when the child is getting late, the child has to feel that, okay, I'm missing on going to school. I am missing. And 10 days, if you stop giving them instructions, or 2 weeks, if you stop giving them instructions, they will, and if they are seeing the consequences of it, that if they miss the online class right now, they are missing on the notes or they're missing on the explanation, trust me, after 2 weeks, they'll do it. I know your child will miss 2 weeks of education, but think what is important right now. Putting that basic life skill in place, or just missing on those 2 weeks is important, because those 2 weeks of concept can somehow be, can be covered. Now we have Byju's, we have so many, we have Vedantu, we have everything. We have Khan Academy, we have everything where we can get the concepts learned. Okay, so understand what is the priority at that age. Setting the life skills is extremely important at that age. So this was an example for all the questions that I have received, that I have to constantly give them instructions. I have set the routine for them. Now, you have set the routine for them. Was the child involved in the decision while you were, trying to set the routine? Sit with your child. Any decision that you take for the child has to be part of the decision. Don't underestimate 4-year-old and 5-year-old. They can equally be part of your decision. Mostly in preschools, because I have been in preschool, parents in preschool take their children for granted and underestimate them. Oh, they will not understand how to set routine for them. They know. It is you have, as a parent, you have to sit with them. So when you are setting a routine for the child, it has to be negotiating. Like, you have to also see what child wants in the routine. Child might want, you have put 10 minutes of screen time, just to give an example, but child wants 20 minutes. Okay, I'm giving you 20 minutes of screen time, but you have to do 30 minutes of physical exercise time. Negotiate with your child, put things on paper and set the routine of the child along with the child. Then you will see that the child takes the responsibility of it. Give you an example. Let's take an example. As an adult, if someone else is giving a task to us, we will not be that responsible. If someone is constantly giving instructions or giving us the work to do, we don't take it we don't take the complete responsibility of it. But if I'm taking some initiative of doing something new at my work, I'll take the whole responsibility and accountability of the task. So that's what works with the child. The child, unless is allowed to set the routine, the child will not take the ownership of it and forget the child, actually doing it. So let me go down. It's very difficult to get children away from mobiles, PS4, TV. How do we make them realize importance of family time? Mobile phones, technology, how to reduce the screen time itself, I can talk for at least 1 hour on that topic. But just to give you some tips, some quick tips. Again, first, sit with your child and discuss, negotiate and finalize on the screen time. Okay, now when I say screen time includes mobile, iPads, PS4, TV, everything. Okay, so decide whether it is 20 minutes, whether it is 25 minutes. Now, so once you have decided, you will see that slowly the child will take an ownership and stop doing it. Next, explaining them the importance of family time. So again, setting rules as a family is important. So just to give you an example, on dinner tables, no mobile phones are allowed. Then as adult, you need to make sure that no one, if not the father, no mother, and not even the children have mobile phones on the table. When you are stopping the child not to bring phone or not to use phone so much, we as adults need to reduce first. Okay, so first thing, decide some area in your house where it is gadget free, which means no gadgets are allowed there. You can choose dinner table, you can choose living room, and no one is allowed, which means even father and mother is not allowed to receive any calls during that time. Start with small time that, okay, 15 minutes, we all sit on the dinner table and no one uses. Then you can say, okay, we increase it to 20 minutes and 25 minutes. Yeah, that's how you can do it. Also, right now, because of lockdown, most of the children are not able to meet their relatives, their cousins, grandparents. So video calling would be a good idea. But again, restricting the video calling, not just that they call only their cousins. They need to call their grandparents if they have. They need to call their uncle and aunts to understand the importance of family. And for that, you need to make sure that you are calling your parents or your in-laws and talking to them. Because if you don't understand the family time, the child is not going to understand. And one important thing, never talk ill about any family member, be it the family member living in house or not living in house. Do not talk ill about any family member in front of your child. When you do that, the child understands ki, okay, there's no family. I mean, everywhere, everyone is doing wrong. So it's important that we stop talking ill about any family member. It could be anyone. So mobile phone, just few tips I have given to set some time for family where no one is allowed to get phone. Start with this first, and then you can set the screen time, negotiate with your child, and let you and your child decide together what should be the screen time for the child. Okay, next, what is the reason when child points out all mistakes anyone in family did, but point out mom because of you? Sorry, I'm unable to understand. What is the reason when child points out all mistakes anyone in the family did, but points out mom because of you? Sorry. If you could explain and elaborate on that.
Hello, Grishma.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my question.
Okay.
Okay. My daughter is 10 years old, and sometimes what will in family fight or some other fight, she points out on me, mother, because of you everyone is fighting. It's not my mistake also, but she nowadays how it is become last from 1 year, she thinks because of mother the family is not in a good environment.
Okay. So see, honestly speaking, it is very important first to understand why is she feeling that way. Okay, has something happened in the past? Has something triggered that in the past? And
Yes.
Also we need to see that there are no family fights in front of children. I know we all have limited space in our houses, but we cannot have family fights in front of children. They should not know that there is a family fight happening. I know it's difficult, but trust me, having family fight is a toxic stress on children. Understand how much it affects you after the fight. It's equally the child is getting affected, and then it affects the learning, the behavior, everything. So coming back to the question, I feel we need to first understand, is there been any past experience? We as adult might not remember or even realize, but the child has thought something, or the child has experienced something which has led to this thought. It cannot be without reason, for sure. Not blaming you as a parent, but sometimes we will not realize it, but they would have felt bad of something. So that's why from the childhood, early years, it's important to have open communication with the child. Now, if the child in past has used such words already with you, we need to start curbing down or stopping that at the first place by communicating with your child. Okay. Now, this PowerPoint presentation, the last 5 slides are most important. If you actually sit and think back, there must be one point related to that slide. Your your example or your experience would be definitely related to it, because a child saying something like that is extreme, and this is not something that can be addressed on a general platform for sure. So maybe you can contact later, but this is not something, because I will have to know what has happened with the child, what happened in the past childhood, to really suggest what to do. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
I will get you back. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, next. I don't like the mess, though doesn't make a difference to him at all. Now, have you put it across to
Grishma?
the child? Yeah.
Grishma, this is Preeti here. That's my question. Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. So, first of all, you were too good. Even as a mother of a 20-year-old, I can relate to what you're saying. It's not only about 5 or 10-year-olds. So, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
This is my question again, that, every day I tell him the same thing, but it doesn't make a difference to him. So, I only feel, is giving up the only option on him? Should I just give up? Should I just not tell him anything? When tomorrow he goes out of the city or out of the country, and when he has to study and when he has to keep things and cook and everything, I feel that if the basics are with you, keeping yourself neat, clean, hygienic, keeping your clothes away, then life becomes much easier when you have many more challenges. So, and my
Yes.
daughter's already left the house, and she's faced this issue. So I don't want my son also to go through the same thing. I want him to be well prepared when he's going to go on and stay on his own. So how do I tackle him?
Okay. Now, I'm glad you actually elaborated on it, because what I can now tell you is it's difficult right now, because it's already like an adult age, and sometimes it's difficult to change habits at this point. Okay. Now, there was a point where I said that let the child experience the consequences that they need to face. So when the child is actually going out, the child is going to face the consequence. I know as a mother, you would feel really sad for it, or really bad, or disappointed. You will feel that, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? But I think you don't have to now feel about it, because at the age of 20, as I said, they will become rebellious. And sometimes because of these fights, children actually step out of the house. Okay. And then at a later stage, they also value you more. But right now, what I can actually suggest is to, if your child is not going immediately to the, out of city, just observe for 2 weeks. Okay. 2 weeks, don't say anything, but don't do also for your child.
Okay.
So if the child is not clearing up the mess, it is not your duty to clear it up. You have finished your parenting duty now.
Yeah. No, Reshma, I don't pick up his clothes at all, but it doesn't make a difference. Whatever I folded it, every day he wears from that, and every day he just uses his room as a cupboard. He just wouldn't put anything inside.
Correct. So how many days do you think after a month he will still do the same?
Because after a month, this is going on since 6 months, 1 year. He just does not pick up his clothes. Yeah.
So then who picks up the clothes?
No, they're lying in his room. They're lying in his room. He wears it from where they are kept, and he, again, new clothes keep coming every evening. Again, he removes from that and wears it, but he does not put it away in his cupboard.
So who is actually putting? Because if it is for 1 year, even if he has 365 t-shirts, all the 365 t-shirts will be out by now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Correct.
So the maid washes the clothes, folds the clothes, irons the clothes, and keeps it in his room. So I tell him the only thing you have to do is put it in your cupboard, so that it doesn't lie in your room. But he doesn't do it. So what to do?
So let it be on the bed. Let it be in the, even if it is for 1 year, just let it be. Don't allow your maid or you to do it, because that's how you can train your child. At least right now he's front of you and you can train it. Yeah. Once he's out, you can't even be with the child. Okay.
True.
So maybe even 2 months, if he's not putting the clothes out, I mean, if the clouds are lying outside, fine, fine. Just don't do anything right now. See how it is going, and then, you know, because
Okay.
I can't right now suggest more than this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I have this approach that the maid will not fold the clothes any more from now on? She'll just keep it in your room. You do what you want to do with them.
Exactly. Let the maid not do it. Please don't do it. Let not the father do it. No one does it for him. He has to do it
Okay.
if he wants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That was
Welcome.
great. You're really good.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Excuse
Just
me,
couple
ma'am.
of.
Grishma, ma'am.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am, I just want to ask you that you were telling about the online classes the child misses and all. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Like, don't you think if the child keeps on missing the classes, does he cultivate that habit and later on he's not aware of the things what he's missing?
Okay.
Don't he he's feeling easy like?
Okay. So in that case, what you can do is here. What I would suggest is, since it's an online class, you log into Zoom or whatever platform your school is using, and let it be on in his room wherever he's sleeping. Okay, and keep it on mute and keep your video off. If you want, I would recommend that you speak to the class teacher about this issue. Okay, and tell them that I am going to try this with my child for next 2 weeks. So I will log in and I will keep it on mute and I will keep the video off. Let the teacher know about it, because right now, due to teachers should be aware of this, that the video is off, because I think most of the schools, the children have to keep the video on. So please specify first to the
videos are off actually. They're not
Sorry?
able. They are feeling it difficult to connect with every child, so they have hardly given very limited time to complete their portion, ma'am. Because the child eyes also gets affected and they have to complete their portion. Too much of pressure on teachers actually.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is teacher doesn't have to do anything, but you have to inform the teacher that you as parent are going to resolve this issue by logging into the Zoom, even if the child has not woken up. Okay, in the child's room, switch on the class and log in. Okay, when the child hears, the child will, first day won't come, second day the child will not come, but slowly the child will see that the children are talking, the children are having fun, and he will join. But this, the teacher has to be informed, because what happens is, if the child, you can also request the teacher, first you need to check whether you can do this, because you are trying to inculcate a habit in your child. Okay, and it's not just for online class. Later it will happen when the physical school also starts. So if you feel the child is cultivating the habit, keep that video on or the Zoom on where the child is, logging in every day, and let the teacher teach. Let it happen and do it in front of the child or where the child is sleeping.